Okay, Dave Wolf on. This video is primarily for you. A long time ago, I hinted that there may be a third part to my Keyser series, and I finally finished it. I didn't finish it for the longest time because I thought about not doing it at all. What it is a small display. It's the original display I had when I first built the scales underneath the kegs back in my kegerator. Because I only had 3 kegs, I only needed a small display, and that's it. And once I moved up to the Keyser and 6 kegs, the issue I have is if you watch the first segments of these videos, I only actually send in a new weight on the scale when I know that I've really, I've vetted the data before I send it in. So it takes a long time for the TV to display a different weight as you're tapping a beer. I'll try to get you close-ups of these devices, and maybe I'll even try to splice them in. I don't like to go to that kind of trouble for these things, but maybe this time just for Dave. So I didn't like that I couldn't see as I'm pouring a beer that the weight is changing. So I added back in the small display, which shows every update that the keg sees. So even if it flips by 1/10 of a pound and flips back, it'll still activate the display. And every time a keg changes, even by a little bit, I'll backlight it. So you've seen it backlight a few times, and that's because a weight has changed. It's probably changed right back because obviously nobody is drawing beer. And maybe I'll be able to get a camera on it while I actually tap one so you can actually see the numbers change. In doing this, I explained in the past, I've got 2 ESP Duinos, each of them running 3 scales inside the Keyser. So I had to hook the 2 ESP Duinos together, which is very simple. You hook their transmit and receives up, and then I hook the display up to just one of the ESP Duinos. When you hook the transmit and receive pins of the ESP Duinos together, you can no longer load them from the Arduino interface on your PC. You've got to break that bond, which really stinks. Even if you power the other board off while you're trying to load one, that's good enough. It's not good enough. If those pins are connected, it still fails. You've got to physically disconnect them, which is a problem for me because they're down inside the Keyser, but hopefully I won't have to change the code that often. I thought about not doing this at all, because once I got into it, I thought, well, if I'm going to hook these 2 ESP Duinos together, then I could probably just use non-ESP Duinos, non-Wi-Fi boards, and hook them both up to the Raspberry Pi that's driving the TV. If you haven't checked out what's happening with Raspberry Pis, you should. You can't get one. I burnt one out. I had a Raspberry Pi Zero that I bought for like 20 bucks. Now you can't get one for 200. So the other Raspberry Pi monitors my garage doors and sees my cars coming and going and automatically opens and shuts them. So I moved that functionality onto this Raspberry Pi, but that didn't take any pins. So I could still have both of these scale Arduinos report back to the Raspberry Pi, and then modify the Raspberry Pi so that it's also a web server and have it display its own web page instead of a web page from my main Linux system. So I thought about that, and I've already gotten this thing where I had the 2 together, and I finally said, let's just finish it and be done with it. So I'm not going to do that 4th part. But if you're building your own from scratch, go that way instead of this way. So this is just a little display. I can't remember, it's 4 lines by maybe 40 characters, or no, 6 lines. 6 lines by 40 characters, something like that. Small display. I just put a little wood frame around it and mounted it next to my taps, and I will try to get you close-ups of those screens. So thank you for watching us, and good luck if you build a keyser.